2021, I feel bad for this class because they're going into their senior year, and a lot of them are losing out on their last year of, summer ball, AAU ball. And I know that it's, you don't necessarily feel the connection to that like you do your school, and fans don't care as much about AAU teams necessarily as they do, their high schools or their local programs or whatever. But it is kind of the last chance for a lot of these guys to get noticed by a lot of coaches all at once. And I think, the NCAA is working, with organizations to kind of figure out, and I don't know if it's been finalized yet, but to kind of stretch that calendar into the fall to give them a few weekends to where there will be those NCAA sanctioned events where hundreds of kids all go to one of 4 sites around the country, and coaches can go and observe there. And then I think they are going to try and get a couple, AAU run events into the late summer, early fall as well. And hopefully that will give a lot of these kids more of a look, because that's a lot more efficient way for coaches to go see players than to kind of, track them down at all these different high schools. So that remains to be seen, how that shapes up. In the meantime, what I'm seeing from SLU in the class of 2021, it looks like we're really just working St. Louis really hard. We talked last time about the DeSmet bigs who I just brought up earlier, those 2 guys who were recruiting. There's Jordan Nesbitt at St. Louis Christian Academy, who we've talked about before, who's a really nice player, and who's, one of, if not our top priority for the class. There's Nicholas Kern Jr. Over at Vashon, who is another high priority in that class. So we're really pushing the local market there hard. We've got a few relatively recent offers out in the class. There's a guy, Clarence Rupert. He's a power forward in Virginia, who we offered a couple months ago. He's got some other A10 level schools interested as well. There's a guy, Duncan Powell, who had previously committed to Arkansas, and he's kind of a 3-4 kind of hybrid forward, a really nice active player. He had committed to Arkansas, decommitted, and is back open again. And I think SLU is one of the schools he said he'd like to get out and visit once he's allowed to. We offered a guy out of Philadelphia, Nizine Poplar, who's a shooting guard. He had never even played organized basketball until high school, and he's blowing up and getting all these major offers now. But being a Philly guy, I don't know if he's one that Bailey would have had the lead on, and therefore maybe somebody who we're not able to kind of stay front and center with. But so I'll be monitoring that one, and then. Who else from that class would be a recent offer? I guess Joshua Beadle is another one who's kind of a in the last couple months who we've offered. He's a point guard out of South Carolina. He's got a couple ACC offers. I think VCU offered him, and then he's got a ton of interest from Big East, ACC, Big Ten schools. But he's a really nice left-handed point guard who's just a really good player who would fit well in our system. But so those are kind of the recent names that I'm seeing in that class. But again, not nearly the level of activity that we would see if they had their normal AAU schedule happening right
now. Lofton with his team down by 2 to the corner. Caputo! No good! And it's over! St. Louis is going dancing. An unlikely run. Tying his career high. Victory was held. And here they come. The student section storms the court at St. Louis. Possession game. Mitchell. Cassidy. Ellis.
Got to get a shot off. It's got to be a three.
Ellis. Mitchell for the tie. Got it!
Runner off the glass, no. Tip battle loose. Evans is absolutely decked by Gant. Evans stays in the game.
Speaking of leveling,
Conklin leveled Wilcox, and he's down for the count. Driving Evans for Conklin layup. Good whistle foul. Count the basket. You want to play rough? You want to play rough? Let's play.
Assume they're not going to foul you. Just take it right to the rim. Goodwin, 2 for the tie, 3 for the win. Goodwin takes it in, and he got it. We're tied. Overtime. Here we come.
Welcome to the House that Rick Built podcast with your hosts, Colin Kessler and Zach Miller. This show is sponsored by Mortgage Partners Group, where mortgage solutions are made simple.
Timeout on the floor. 68-46 St. Louis. This is Billiken basketball.
Welcome back to the House that Rick Built podcast, brought to you by Mortgage Partners Group, where mortgage solutions are made simple. Give Jason a call at 314-422-0649. Back with episode number 77. I'm your host, as always, Colin Kessler, joined as usual by Zach Miller. Zach, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Just another beautiful day in the neighborhood. And enjoying the plethora of obscure sports that are on my TV. It's kind of fun, to be honest. Having something to watch live during the day.
Yeah. I'm going to say this right now because I can still hear them and it's really bugging me, but I can't turn them off or I will maybe die because I think I'm living on the surface of the sun right now. I have 3 fans going, so if you hear a white noise in the background, I apologize for that right off the bat. Zach, one of the first things I have to point out here is we obviously have not changed anything about our backgrounds. We've learned nothing from episode 1 of the video form of this. Hopefully you guys liked it. I think in total, that was maybe our best episode of like the last 6 or 7. I think we broke 200 pretty easily between the two. So that was nice. Thank you guys. I hope you liked it. If you did like it, please let me know. Like, I'm very curious. This is about as close as I'll get to begging. If you enjoyed something about it, if you didn't like something about it, if you even just watched it in the video form, tell me who you are. Give me some kind of feedback because I'm always curious. And
Yeah,
let's
it
face
helps.
it, it's the summer of Corona and there's nothing to talk about, including basketball. So help me out. Entertain me.
I decided we need college Australia rules. I decided it right now. Forget NCAA football as we know it. NCAA Aussie rules. Bring it to the United States. It's just helter skelter nonsense, and I love it.
Yeah, my camera keeps changing color for some reason. I don't know what.
I'm
what
noticing that.
Did you see that too?
Yeah, it's like a mood ring. It's like a 70s mood ring.
I don't know. That's
fired
weird.
up right now.
I feel I don't know why would it do that. Whatever. Anyway, not to get distracted by the color of my camera. We're gonna get into our first topic of the night. Men's tennis, keeping us entertained and honestly excited about next year. The freshman class, ranked number 23 in the country. That is, I believe, Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, the best incoming class, top 25 incoming class.
Yeah, among mid-majors. So, I mean, it's not, a massive headline, but it is a headline that, it is something that's, I don't think, ever been done, as mentioned in the article. And I think it's important to note that it's a sport that doesn't get a lot of funding, doesn't get a lot of institutional support. And that's just by just the nature of the beast. But I like tennis. I played tennis in high school, so it's something of note to me. I'm not nearly good enough to play for the Billikens, obviously, as everybody knows. But yeah, it's exciting at least to see the new coach. They just hired a new guy, and seems like he's doing all right.
Yeah. I have no talent in tennis. I'll be honest. I am tennis illiterate. So this is simply just exciting from the standpoint of seeing other teams and other programs be successful at St. Louis University. We're where does tennis play on campus? Am I?
They do. They're not on campus. They play for a long time they played at Dwight Davis over in Forest Park. I'm not sure if they still do. I know they played at Sunset for a while out in South County.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
That
that's
seems like
still where
something
they're
that would
at.
have ended up on like the sports complex there, right around Chaffetz.
It was there. So it was there. That's where Chaffetz is.
Oh, okay, I got you. I did not know that.
Yeah.
At this point, Hughes Jr. only has one offer, and it's SLU. We offered early on. As I don't know if it's been a full year, but I think we offered in the fall, like last fall or winter, and we remain his only offer. He's got a lot of high-level interest coming in now. But yeah, being Larry Hughes Jr., SLU's going to make him a priority. The big question is going to be, how heavy that legacy weighs, whether he wants to follow in his dad's footsteps, whether he wants to kind of do his own thing. That's really what it comes down to. And that's out of SLU's control. We can only make the best pitch for him we can. And he's been a priority probably since well before high school. So he's a huge priority in that class. The new Rivals top 150 has him at 139. So he's definitely hitting the national radar as well. He's growing. They say he's about 6'6" now. He's still pretty lean, but he's not even a junior yet. So he'll have plenty of time to kind of fill out his frame. But in the meantime, he's been working out daily at his dad's basketball academy. So he's got that gym to himself whenever he wants it, which is great. I think he's a better shooter than his dad was, certainly at this age, maybe at any point in his career. Larry Sr. was never known as like the most efficient scorer. He was just an awesome player who could take over a game. And, he was a 5-star recruit in his day. And I don't think Junior is there. He's not quite on that trajectory yet. But he's got a nice game. He's got a nice skill set. He's got good size. He's definitely one of those players where, you're disappointed that this spring and summer AAU season didn't happen, because it would have been a good chance to see exactly where he is in relation to, the other players in his class. At CBC, he's playing alongside Caleb Love, who's one of the more ball-dominant players that the area has put out in a long time. Caleb Love, another guy who's a 5-star recruit. He's going to UNC. But he's scoring 27, 28 points a game, and the offense is completely running through him. So Hughes Jr. is a sophomore who's just trying to get an open look whenever he can get one. It's not all about him yet. So it didn't give us the best idea of where exactly he is as a D1 recruit yet. So that remains to be seen. But I personally like everything I'm seeing out of him so far. I think he's, if he wanted to commit today, I would absolutely take that. So a while back, he tweeted a graphic that said UNC and SLU and a few other schools were recruiting him. I think it only listed 4 schools at the time. And then on the 15th, when rising juniors, the class of 2022, could start getting contacted directly by college coaching staffs, he said he heard from Purdue, Ohio State, Kansas State, and Mizzou. 3 of those schools I had already been able to identify, were kind of showing interest in him already. So I don't really know why he didn't include SLU there. I don't know whether we didn't call him yet, if that doesn't matter, because SLU's been in contact with him, his dad or his coach anyway, Coach Tatum at CBC all the time. I'm not really sure why SLU wasn't listed there, but make no mistake, he's still a priority, and other offers haven't rolled in for him yet, but I would expect to see that fairly soon start happening for him. But yeah, so those are the schools who have reached out that we know of so far, and I think plenty more are on the way. Where they all stack up in relation to one another, I think it's too early to say. This class, 2021 and 2022, I guess even 23, depending on how things go. There's just going to be a little bit of a delay as this year is so messed up recruiting wise, and coaches really aren't seeing a lot of new guys. So we're just going to have to kind of wait and see on some of these guys.
Moving on to women's basketball, this is an incoming freshman, Peyton Kennedy, was named the Girls Basketball Player of the Year for the Best of Rock River Valley Preps Award Show. So already for the women's basketball team, some incoming talent that is a little bit exciting, I think it's safe to say. And Zach, this is a team that we saw last year. I don't know how to put this. I don't want to say underperform, but just frustrating at times because you know that the talent is there. And it's a team that's going to have to find a way to stabilize and improve on that this year. And hopefully this is maybe a piece or a part of that.
Yeah, they're going to have to find a way to replace some inside scoring and rebounding. And hopefully Brooke Flowers can do that. And hopefully Lisa Stone has brought in or is going to bring in a player that can help out.
Yeah. How much stock do you put into this as a fan? Because I feel like right now, and this doesn't have to be specifically about her, but I feel like right now is the time of the year where awards suddenly seem so important simply because we have nothing else to gravitate towards, that we just fixate on it and get really excited about that award and be like, oh, but no, look, like it's something you can quantify and say, this is why like your team is now better for this season because of that fact.
I think it's nice. It's a good boost of confidence for the freshman coming into a team that, maybe she's just getting to know, and especially a freshman that's coming into a team that's not going to be together until, maybe the end of July, which we'll get to here in a minute.
Right.
But I mean, Best of Rock River Valley Preps Award. I don't know what exactly that even means. Is it a regional? Is it a full on state that it covers? But Sage Steele was presented or was a host, which is big time, as you know from ESPN.
I think Steph Curry presented the award. Yeah.
It was, he did.
So, wow. This isn't nothing. There's certainly something to be said here about the platform in which she's being recognized on, and the significance of the power behind that platform, I guess you could call it, or the draw behind it. I don't know how else to describe it. It's celebrity power of them being there suddenly makes it better. That's kind of a terrible line of logic from me, but, kind of get the idea of what I'm getting at there, I hope.
Yeah. At least that's what they want us to think.
Right, yeah. They just distract us with shiny objects.
I think it's a big loss. It's a tough loss for Slew because he's kind of that perfect level assistant for us right now, where he's got a lot of assistant coaching experience. I think he's been doing it for 15 plus years now. And at a few different stops. And so he's not a guy who's going to go get a high-level head coaching job quite yet. He's taking the next step toward that by going to, a power conference program. So I think he's kind of a tough loss for us, because when you look at our staff now, you've got Coach Tate, who's kind of the local connection that everybody knows. It's why we've been able to really come back as St. Louis's team because of his recruiting ability there and his relationships with everybody in the area. And then you've got Coach Stewart, who you guys talked to the other day, who's only 28 years old. So he's young. He's obviously a really strong recruiter and an up and comer, and a great guy to have on staff. But Bailey's experience is tough to replace. You've got Ray Giacoletti, who's been coaching since the mid 80s when he got out of school. And he's the assistant to Coach Ford. I think his title and the fact that you can only have 3 assistants who are active recruiters mean that he can't, necessarily get out and recruit. but a guy who is at his point in his career, might not want to be on the road all the time, and he just has a wealth of knowledge and experience to share with Coach Ford and in practice and scouting and breaking down game film and everything like that. So it's a little bit different function. So Bailey's right in that kind of sweet spot that we now kind of don't have on the staff. If you look down the staff a little bit, we've got a few grad assistants. Michael Wilson is the director of basketball operations. You've got Christian Nunez and Chris Lowe, and there's another young grad assistant. So you think about, maybe everybody kind of moves up a step, bring one of those guys. Lowe and Nunez are both New York City guys, which is obviously a place that we've had some recruiting success in since Coach Ford has come. And he had Van Macon earlier, who was from New York and is now back in the area coaching there. But those are guys who can both still recruit New York City. So I don't know what Ford's going to do yet, but somebody in Bailey's spot is tough to lose right now, and just it's not the easiest to replace at this point in the game. The other thing he brought is he's a Chicago native, and we don't have anybody else right now who's as connected to Chicago as he was. He also coming from LaSalle, we had been recruiting some guys in Philadelphia, New Jersey, that area. And then, he played at UAB and was an assistant there. And we've got some offers out to kids in Alabama and Mississippi. So I think those are probably his recruits. So we'll kind of see how the recruiting map shifts a little bit here. So I think I'd definitely be looking for somebody with Chicago and or, East Coast connections in an assistant for sure.
College basketball has a return schedule that is approved. You brought this to my attention. I actually, to be honest, have had my head buried in the sand on social media for the most part lately, so I have had no interaction with any kind of news apart from certain video. Zach, fill me in on what this return schedule looks like and what the direction is looking like for this season.
So essentially, they have cleared, the NCAA has cleared college athletes, specifically, I believe, basketball, to return to campus July 20th to resume team workouts, team-sanctioned workouts, I guess, in small groups. Players have already started matriculating back to campus. They started, I believe – there goes your camera again.
I know. What's that all about?
They have started working out in the practice gym. I know that. Not any sort of structured thing, just, shooting around and that sort of thing. So it's a step forward. It just very much depends, I think, on what this world does in the next, month. I think we're going to have to wait and see what happens by July 20th. Honestly, I think it's played by ear. I think you always, and somebody asked me today, and I don't think they followed college sports, but, teams are still recruiting. Like, you kind of forget that things have to keep going and you have to prepare for the best, hope for the best and prepare for the worst, I guess.
Well, so one of the things I did notice in my short amount of time that I have tried to spend on social media has been, and it was, I think it was a couple days ago, maybe a little bit longer than that. I don't know. Time's really lost any sense of meaning to me in the last couple of months. But it seemed like the wall on recruiting was suddenly broken. And all of a sudden we were hearing about players being contacted by coaches. St. Louis University was in on that. Hopefully we'll have some more information later on the show for you on that. Not new information, just a recap of information.
I think that happened like last week. Maybe
was it?
Monday.
Gosh, man.
Had to have been.
Time feels like it's just dragging sometimes. But,
the weeks feel long, but the weeks feel short, but the days feel long, don't they?
I mean, time just feels long, period, right now. I mean, it's a weird weird thing. So watching that breakdown and seeing things return to the closest sense of normal that we've had since March, when everything finally shut down and the season was canceled, that was exciting. But at the same time, and not to get too deep into this because I really don't want to talk about it, but I think one of the things, if I may get, I mean, this isn't political, but one of the things that's looming over this is the fact that a lot of people are talking about second wave, or this coming back around again, or we haven't gotten rid of it. Spikes are starting to happen. So I think from a purely objective standpoint, as a fan, you have to look at this right now and say, are we really going to see, games next season where we can go to them, or are they going to play at all? One of the ones that I'm focused on right now is that tournament in November in Orlando. That tournament is such a big tournament just for the games and the opponents that we could play in that tournament. That would be great, would be huge. If they played in a high school gym with no one watching but a camera and the benches and the referees, I'd be happy with it. I'd be perfectly happy with it.
I think 99.9% of Billiken fans would agree with you, including myself. I think they're going to have to at some point realize or come to Jesus moment where it says, hey, it doesn't matter if X players test positive, quarantine them from the team for 2 weeks. When they're done, bring them back. I really have there's no, dude, they're going to have to come to a point where, you test positive for this.
I wonder if there's going to be such a thing as sports teams going into their own quarantine in an effort to keep these teams isolated on campus and maybe not even let the kids that play sports go to class.
Yes.
If you are on a sports team, I'm sorry, you're all online. You're in your dorm room.
You go to the gym. You go home.
To that point, you'd almost have to just isolate them next to the gym. But that would just be a terrible way of life. But
look, I think there's
also a certain amount of paranoia that's playing into this too.
Look. Okay, so I'm no doctor, but being outdoors seems, and with a mask, seems like it's working.
Right. I'm talking about
as long
a dorm complex.
Right.
Though.
As long as if you can isolate them in an apartment complex off campus.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You can put them in an apartment complex or a house or a couple houses. You Airbnb that shit. That could work. But I don't know where they're living now. I know Hassan was up in a hotel, according to social media.
Well, so let me ask you this, though, because this is also coming to my mind now. When you think about college kids and being in college, and I'm one of them, so I can't even try to talk about this in a third person. But at the same time, let's all be honest with ourselves. When you guys were in college, the odds are you were not going to be held captive to a single residence and not go out, not go to hang out with other friends that aren't, in quarantine or aren't following the same rules that you are. So does this just invite more problems?
Look at these pro athletes that are testing positive. Austin Matthews test positive of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
I'm just saying.
You can't keep the.
There goes my camera again.
You can't keep
Connection
pro
not great
athletes
here
with $1 million mansions. I know you can't keep $1 million mansions. People that have literally massive houses, you can't keep them in one single place.
Right. So, does this just invite more problems by being? Some might call it safe and proactive. Some might call it paranoid. However you want to slice it, does this invite more problems? Because here's the thing.
There's always going to be problems. There's always going to be logistics. There's always going to be problems. There's always going to be logistics. It's going to be a complete shit show. But you have to, at some point, accept it. You have to accept it, and that's what these leagues are going to end up doing. You know,
I mean, it's gonna be all over the place. The things you can look forward to that are going to be easy to figure out. One is going to be what happens. I assume, I don't remember if SLU announced their schedule for next year yet or not, but a lot of schools are going to, a lot of colleges are going to a format where finals exams or the last time you're on campus is right before Thanksgiving break.
SLU
And then
made that
the
change.
athletes could be, the winter sports athletes could be, isolated on campus in a very now safe environment because they're the only people on campus and probably living in, clumps around campus. So the reality is you have a nice, what'll probably end up being 2-month break in there where these teams are pretty much isolated by themselves. And I think if you're responsible throughout the fall, by the time students start coming back onto campus in the spring, you might almost be through it. But, knock on wood that I'm not jinxing it. And again, this is all just hypothetical. And this whole story and this whole hypothetical will change tomorrow when more new information comes out or when something crazy changes and goes, this direction or that. It's an ever-changing thing. And I don't think anyone could predict right now where we'll be sitting at next March come Brooklyn time.
We can talk about this. We could do a podcast just on trying to figure out how the logistics. We could honestly sit here, me, you, Pete, West Pine. We could bring on Mike Wilson. We could bring on Coach Ford. We could sit here and talk for hours about the logistics. We could actually, I take that out. We could do 8 hours straight just talking about that and not go over ourselves again, not overlap.
Yeah. One of the things too,
it's crazy.
One of the things too, as I'm sorry, I talked over you for the folks that are watching or listening at home because our connection's kind of been rough and you cut out. But anyway, what I think I want to move on to now, because as you said, you could talk about this forever. And I would like to talk about a couple of other things still. One of those being the Ford Stewart interview. If you guys haven't seen that yet, episode 76, the Ford Stewart interview, go check that out right now. It's on YouTube. It's on our YouTube page, The House That Rick Built. It is camera
awesome.
Changed again. It is amazing. I think, Zach, I described it to someone as we asked Ford Stewart 8 questions, and he filled 2 hours and 30 minutes of content. And I think that's how it worked.
He's got a lot of Rick Majerus in him.
Yeah. It was quite unbelievable how well-spoken he was, how quick he was with answers, how open and honest he was, and how willing he was to talk. I mean, we went, I think it was 2.5 hours, and he was ready to go again for another 2.5. He's like,
we kept, what did we keep talking for an hour?
Probably, yeah, honestly. It was quite a while. I just cannot thank him enough. He reached out to us, said some very nice things about the show, said he'd be willing to come on, came on the show, and was one of the most informative and interesting guests that we've had on the podcast, including, as I've talked to a couple of people about as well, the conversation about overseas recruiting I thought was fantastic. Hearing the difference between that and, hearing Harriman's name mentioned was something that really stood out to me, because here goes Ford Stewart, a guy who's from he's now the second regime post Harriman and Majerus and the whole crew. And he's still hearing about the impact of Harriman and the legacy of SLU basketball recruiting overseas. I think that just goes to show how important overseas recruiting has historically been for this program, at least in the last 20 or so years.
Yeah, I want to tie another subject he talked a lot about. And I was actually really happy about this subject, and I don't know if people actually appreciate it or not, but the talk about gear and how that affects recruiting and what we're wearing and what they get, but I wanted to transfer that into Guy Phillips retiring from Y98. And
wow, wait a second.
Yes, no,
I'm
listen,
going to call out that transition was not as smooth as you think it is.
I'm getting there. And
This is a
people
very
called
slow
out,
burn.
called Guy Phillips. Yeah, people called Guy Phillips out on Twitter and asked if he was going to retire from the SLU games too. And then it got into a conversation about whether or not Guy Phillips really matters and his mistakes. Okay. Now, Stoon, and I'm not going to put words in Ford's mouth, but when Ford Stoon talks about giving guys that Power 5 experience and giving guys, the same things that those Power 5 teams, the Kentuckys, the Oklahoma State, all these teams get, I think, in my personal opinion, that includes the public address announcer. And if the public address announcer is not Power 5 quality, then you're not, then that, and that can affect whether guys stick around. If their name's getting mispronounced for 4 freaking years, are you going to, this is a joke, right?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you, Zach. For those of us that were me or listening at home on the ID, for those of us listening at home on either the audio form or the video form, yeah, I am. You were cutting in and out, and I just can't speak. But one of the things, getting back to Guy Phillips, since you've somehow worked him into this conversation magically.
Yeah, sorry, Ford Stoon.
Yeah, and I don't know that we entirely put together what you were trying to say there. I think we kind of got an idea. To summarize, I guess it would be that you were talking about Ford Stoon creating the bonuses for being at SLU.
Well, no, I was saying that Ford Stoon, basically, when you recruit a guy and you show them everything that they get, the gear, the warm-ups, the jerseys, the shoes, your practice gear, that all is similar to having a PA announcer that can actually, what's the word?
Do his job.
That can get names right. Yes, do his job competently. Yes, competently.
Wow. I have a very sheepish look on my face right now after saying that.
And I'm exhausted.
We are going to somehow get in trouble for that one. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, yeah, it is frustrating.
Ford Stoon said nothing. He said nothing about PA. He never did. I want to be 100% clear on that.
Correct.
I'm not putting words in his mouth, but this is my personal opinion based off of what he explained about gear and perks of playing at St. Louis University.
Correct. And I agree. There goes my camera again. It goes down to why do I have to point that out every time? It goes down to the experience that a player is going to have at St. Louis University, the atmosphere, the energy. And when you know that a guy's name is being mispronounced, and especially if it's your own, as a player, you just that's I would say insulting at best, right? I mean, that's a lack of respect for you as someone who's going out there and performing at the highest level you possibly can. I don't know. I mean, I think it just comes down to being an insult, period, to the players, to the athletes. And when you create that kind of an environment, that's a problem.
So on June 15th at midnight is when the NCAA allowed coaches to start contacting the class of 2022, the guys who are going to be juniors in the fall directly. So everybody who's a D1 recruit stays up late, keeps the phone on, and see who calls, and it's kind of an exciting time because you're kind of seeing who's getting called by who might be those priorities who are getting the midnight calls, things like that. So that's what I was saying earlier when Hughes was getting contacted by like Ohio State, Purdue, Mizzou, K-State. Those are the schools calling him at midnight to kind of reach out and if not make an introduction, then to kind of build on the relationship that they had already been building through his high school coach, and some of them might have been offered already. So SLU, from what I've been able to find so far, we hadn't been as active as some other schools have. You get a wide range. Some schools like to call dozens and dozens of guys. Some really zero in on their top priorities. So we didn't call a ton of guys from what I can confirm. I mean, there are probably more that we're just not finding. So we didn't see it with some of the guys we've already offered, like Hughes or Rob Martin, who's also at CBC. But Terrace Reed from Chaminade, who's a big man there, did confirm that SLU reached out. He also got new offers from Xavier at Creighton. So he's getting pretty heavily recruited by the Big East now to go along with offers from Nebraska, K-State, Mizzou, UMKC, which is going by Kansas City now. And then he had a number of other schools reach out and get in touch with him. So it's looking like Terrace Reed, who's rated around, the top 75 or so recruits in the class of 2022, is a priority, not just for SLU, but for a lot of schools, power programs around the Midwest. And again, he's a power forward. He's 6'8", really strong frame, kind of a little reminds you physically of Tyler Cook a little bit, but he's got a little more of an inside out game. Loves to kind of play in the mid range and can even step out and shoot it a little bit. Just a big, strong, versatile power forward who's coming along nicely. So obviously, yeah, he's going to be a solid 4-star in that class and a priority there. But some of the other kids that SLU has offered so far did not at least report that SLU reached out. We did extend a new offer to Nick Smith Jr., who's a point guard. I guess you could call him a combo guard because he's a really high-scoring point guard out of Sherwood, Arkansas. And the reason that he would be on the radar, in addition to the fact that he's like a top 50, top 60 player, basically rated by every recruiting service. But he's been playing for a couple of years for the Brad Beal Elite AAU program, which is based out of St. Louis, formerly known as the St. Louis Eagles. But Smith, in addition to getting offers from SLU, got him from Alabama, Auburn, K-State, Murray State, Georgetown. So we were one of 6 or 7 schools that did offer on the same day. So there's a St. Louis tie there, but his recruitment is a crowded pool, certainly. And I haven't seen an indication yet that, will be a high priority for him. So, you can dream, but we'll see what happens there. A few other kids that we reached out to in the 2022 class. There's a kid, Braden Applehans out of Blue Springs, Missouri. He's kind of a tall shooter, a wing, 6'6", kind of lanky, but a really good shooter for a solid Blue Springs team. And he got calls from Creighton, Wyoming, Carbondale, Drake, Belmont, some solid. A couple power schools and a couple more mid-major type programs. So we'll be keeping an eye on him. Haven't recruited the Kansas City area that heavily. So we'll see if that might be kind of an entree into that market as well. And then there's a guy, Scotty Washington, who's a shooting guard out of Bellflower, California, who plays for St. John Bosco, which is kind of one of the power, private school programs out there. He's got a ton of, schools that have called him, and he's already got about a dozen offers as well, mostly kind of West Coast schools, but TCU, Mississippi State, Ole Miss. He's got some high-level offers as well. So we'll keep an eye on that one as well. It's a brand new name to me. And then the last guy that I saw that we had called in this class is named Brian Taylor, and he's a guard out of De Smet in St. Louis. So as far as I can tell, he doesn't have any offers yet. But schools like SLU and Creighton, Tulsa, Loyola, Carbondale, and a few other Valley schools all reached out to him the other day when they could. So he's kind of a slashing scoring guard. He'll shoot it a little bit. And I think he was their second leading scorer this year. He plays on the team with two guys who are going to be seniors, 2 big men. That SLU is recruiting as well, and they've been to a bunch of games. Yaya Keita and Sekou Gassama, both bigs, both at De Smet, and both guys that SLU is prioritizing. So, with Coach Ford's son having gone to DeSmet, and I guess he's got another one there now. That's obviously a school that's close to him, and we recruit the MCC in St. Louis pretty heavily. So we'll see where that one goes as well. But those are the kids in the 2022 class so far that SLU has made contact with. I'm sure there are others, and I'll be letting you guys know as I find more of those.
I don't want to say post-pandemic because I don't think it is post-pandemic. I don't think we can say that. I'm going to knock on wood just to be safe. But post this reopening, this slow reopening of the country, what is happening right now in college basketball? Let's take that and let's talk about what's happening specifically with the Billikens right now. How many guys do we have back on campus right now that we know of?
I believe all the St. Louis guys at least, and Hassan. I mean that it stands to reason that Jordan Goodwin. I don't know if they're back on campus.
Yeah,
they may be in. Maybe they may be able to get to campus, but I would imagine all of the St. Louisans, including TJ, and I know Hassan was at least back in St. Louis for a while.
It's nice to hear that. It's nice sentiment because you feel like somehow you're closer to basketball season, and then you remember it's the middle of June, and we're not actually as close as it seems.
Did you see Terrence's funny post about the coronavirus test?
No.
He didn't take too kindly to getting that thing jammed up his nose.
Well, the one thing I will say is I saw Terrence Hargrove, I think, go viral on Instagram. I don't know what qualifies viral.
Oh God, it was I got it was like
300,000 views.
Yeah,
I did too, from a couple of people. And I don't remember what it was. I'll find the video.
I'll tell you
here and show you guys in the video form if you are watching it online.
The account is @funnyhoodvids.
Yes, I do remember that. But I'll put the video right here. So watch it. Boom. There we go. But I'm enjoying the attitude and the energy that Terrence Hargrove is bringing this offseason because it reminds you once again in the middle of the summer why it's so much fun to watch Billikens basketball right now. We can also talk about Jimmy Bell Jr. going out and losing some more weight this summer.
I think he hit 100.
Yeah. Triple digits weight loss in, what is it now, a year and a half, 2 years?
Wow.
Thereabout. I mean, that's a guy that hasn't even started a sophomore year in college. I mean, that's a lot of composure and maturity.
The locomotive's fire stays stoked is what I think.
100%. And that just shows how scary our front court is going to be for the next couple of years as well. When you look on down the line, next 2-3 years, we're looking pretty comfortable there.
Yeah.
So, another thing. Oh, you got something else?
No.
All right. Another thing I wanted to talk about, and this is going to be a conversation that Zach might get you fired up, which is why I didn't tell you about it before we started.
Hell yeah.
I ran into a conversation the other day, and this is not anything that's happened in the bill. Well, it's happened, but it's not like a specific moment, right? Someone started talking to me. It was an older fan who said something about they thought maybe the attendance in the student section had dipped over the years.
Oh, you think?
And I said, here's the problem. What you had in prior years when you had more bars around campus, you had some sort of a SLU college nightlife. The students of St. Louis University were congregating around or on campus at these bars, and they became the spot to go to before basketball games. And then the natural transition, because everyone was going there, was to go from the bars to the basketball game and then maybe back to the bar or wherever after the game. But who cares at that point? You went to the game.
Yeah.
That tradition has been broken because all form of bars and social establishments around St. Louis University's campus, as we've talked about a number of times in the podcast, has disappeared, essentially. You have a couple of nice places, but the loss of Humphreys, the loss of the library annex, and more places like this have created a lack in tradition that can't be fixed by just Travis Ford and the team he's put together here. Will there be more attention on them because of their success? Yes. But the lasting impact does not have the same effect.
It would have
It's
to
not
be a Final Four. It would have
that
to be some. It would have to be some rocket ship
right.
success. I think you're onto something there. I think it would. I would almost equate it to like Rams, the Rams and tailgating. The Rams stadium being downtown.
Yeah.
Not having a lot of big lots for tailgating, and then seeing you don't get that full game day experience for sure. I think, and part of it isn't so much that they've created an environment, the game day atmosphere can't be good. I think they've created an environment where a certain type of student comes to this university now. You've essentially neutered party atmosphere on campus, and people that would be the type to get drunk and go to basketball games and get excited aren't going to come to your school anymore because they can't, stumble out of the bar and walk to their dorm room or their apartment on campus or right off campus. But I think it just changes the culture, and I'll blame Pastello all day for that. You can't tell me he didn't want to change that culture.
Well, look, I'm not going to try to place blame on it.
Sure.
But it was an idea when I was – and it was funny because I've never posed this argument to anyone before in my life, nor have I really had that conversation all that much. But when I was sitting there talking to him, it just kind of made sense where engagement would naturally go down if you just decimate the culture and the tradition of the athletic department in any of the sports teams on campus where there are none of those social spots. And the thing is, it's also always going to be an attractive point for alumni to come back, to get on campus, to come back and support the university, and to continue this kind of loop of keeping people involved in St. Louis University. And you don't really do that.
And another thing too is that you take away Humphreys, which was almost a shrine to Billiken athletics.
It was a shrine.
Yes, it was. It absolutely was. You go in there and you see the old pictures of the players, the band on the wall. They've got the schedule on the cups.
Yeah.
Man, like you see that this is a happening. It's not just a thing that happens, if that makes sense.
Kind of. I don't know. All I think it boils down to for me is that, and I don't know, I think Wes Pine might have said this on Twitter a long time ago, and I just couldn't figure it out at the time because I didn't have an answer, and I didn't know why I didn't have an answer. But there's no, like, traditions at St. Louis University, I mean, there are some, but can we really talk about any traditions specific to St. Louis University that have a unique quality that none of the other schools in the country can match apart from our mascot? I don't think so.
I would say the freshman soccer game, but that's super lame and school sponsored. It's not super lame. I'll say that it's cool. It's cool as hell to see all those kids show up for the soccer game. But again, they don't do anything cohesively, right? Everybody competes with their floor. Okay. That's a problem. The clock tower as a gathering place is a tradition, I guess. There's not a lot of traditions surrounding sports. I'm guessing someone who's more into campus life could tell me there's a lot cooler things that go on that aren't involved with sports. But I mean, you don't have any real cheers. The Budweiser song and the little up and down.
But even narrow this down more to things that we can really speak on specifically and really get down to the bottom of. When you talk about, let's just say, men's basketball, for example, there are men's basketball programs around the country that have their own little things that they do, their own pieces of culture, of tradition, what makes them, the nuanced things that make them that university and grow this experience that Ford Stewart was talking about in last episode. when you can do that as a fan base with these little pieces of culture and tradition, whatever they might be, whether it's a chant, it's a song, it's whatever pregame rituals, I don't care. Having stuff like that, I think it's weird that we don't. And I'm not gonna like get up and say all of a sudden now we need to go out and do the wave to start the second half and create something out of thin air. I'm just saying, like, why don't we? Like, I'm sure there's been a stab at starting something at some point, or there was something that just disappeared.
Yeah, they tried to do a new fight song or tried to create a fight song. I don't know. It really stunk. Kind of, it was kind of an attempt. I mean, that was probably 10, 15 years ago. Yeah, I mean, there were chants that we came up with, that were kind of organically happened. REED, read. But I don't see much of that anymore. I don't see players chants other than just yelling their name. I mean, you had the Kwame. You had Ozzy, which is like that writes itself. And it's just different things. I mean, but there's nothing that really sticks to the Billiken basketball aspect of it, and I don't know quite why. I mean, maybe it's the up and down nature of the program, the fact that and it really has. To be honest, they didn't have great success, but they stayed steady for throughout the 90s. I mean, it wasn't like Soderbergh had terrible teams.
And that gets back to what stuff we've talked about with players in the past. The energy around those Spoon Hour teams and the max capacity crowds that they were selling out these games, the average attendance numbers that were on these games, there was hype, there was energy, there was excitement, there was a love and a passion for this team, early 90s, mid 90s, all the way through the Spoonball era. And it just evaporated so quickly, it feels like.
I don't know how. I don't know. I mean, did all those people, die out? I mean, where were the kids like me that went to the games? Where are they?
I don't know. I can't tell you. I don't.
I mean, I have fond memories. I was sucked into it. Pete Hale was sucked into it. Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing to me too, and this is another point, and this is one I don't know if I've talked about it enough on the show, but I read something about Travis Ford the other day, and I was shocked because I'd never heard it before, but he said this before I even came to the same conclusion. The reason that, for me, someone like that doesn't actually go to the university that cares this deeply about it, which is probably in some ways weird, but like I grew up with like my family being season ticket holders, always going to games, like always being there. And so for me, it was more like the way I love the Cardinals, the Rams when they were here, the Blues. It's St. Louis's basketball team. Like, this is the highest level of basketball you're going to see in the city at any given point in time. This is the highest level of basketball. The better that SLU is, the more top tier teams you're going to get, top 25 national championship contender teams that you could get here in the non-conference. Now, I'm obviously being a little dramatic and romantic about this because I would love to see that, but still, the better this team is, the more competitive teams you're going to see come into town and the more exciting basketball you're going to see. And it's going to be high-level basketball. College basketball is still very high level as a professional, no, but it's pretty high level. And this is as high as it's going to get in the city of St. Louis because I do not see an NBA team coming here. So Travis Ford embracing the fact that this is St. Louis's team and, going back to the Stewart interview now, Fort Stewart talks about some of the changes that were made to the – I don't know if it was the uniforms he's talked about specifically, but the apparel the team was wearing, the stuff that they were giving out, that was a conscious change that they made to make this an experience with everything involved. And adding to that the connection with the city of St. Louis and the significance of being in the city of St. Louis and playing with the city of St. Louis on your jersey. It's one of those little nuanced things about Travis Ford that I do have a lot of respect for, and I think I've kind of acknowledged more recently, especially with the Stewart interview. But it also just, getting back all the way around to where they started at, makes me feel like not having bars is killing some of the momentum that Travis Ford is putting behind this entire university right now with the basketball program. And we're just speaking specifically about that right now. Yeah. Like, if you had that culture, that nightlife, for college kids to go out and make a tradition of it, the overall experience and the longevity of this energy could be much greater.
Well, yeah, you have. I mean, look, like the thing I've always noted is that there's a lot of steam lost after the first couple home games, right? You go on the road, you go to an early season tournament. These bars, they could host watch parties.
Right.
Keep that momentum going. Get kids excited to go out to these bars and watch the games. Have some fun.
Right. And how many people
fun.
might just wander in on a Thursday night or something, I don't know, random night of the week when the Billikens happen to be playing a midweek game. And of course, you know, a Humphreys would have that game on, and all of a sudden a student that maybe didn't care about basketball sits there, experiences that environment, listens to people getting excited, going crazy, and all of a sudden they care. I mean, it's an easy way to amplify the effect of that team on the student community, and yet it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen at all.
Absolutely. It's a shame.
And it gets back to why people, I think, at the end of the day, are upset that these establishments are no longer around campus, and some of the most historic ones have been allowed to leave campus. And I say allowed to leave campus, but I mean, in one way or another, they are no longer in business, and that's unfortunate.
And there's no place for me to black out after games.
Well, okay. There you go. There you have Zach's primary focus throughout the games as he watches them. I'm kidding. That is a joke.
Culture and tradition are really hard to build. They take so long. It's a slow climb. But yeah, like you saw, it's also very fragile. You can lose it quickly. If your program goes in the toilet for a few years, like ours did, around the same time that, you know, some of your mainstays, like Humphreys, start going away, it's just, it changes on a dime. What SLU needs is, well, number one, you need to sustain a winning program. SLU has to be about as good as it was the last couple of years, for, you know, 4, 5, 6 years in a row to keep people interested, for one, to where there really is an issue of who do we prioritize for tickets, you know, instead of let's just get people in, where there actually might be, oh, should we be prioritizing younger fans or the people who've been buying season tickets for decades? You know, now we want everybody. But yeah, I don't know. It's a tough thing to build. And SLU's always, you know, we've always been in the conference that, like Conference USA, that falls apart. You know, in the A10 doesn't seem like it's going to be sustainable forever. You don't want to go to the American because that looks as vulnerable as any conference. So we're always kind of in that just outside the power conferences conference, which is a fragile spot. I don't know what it's like there now, but coming into SLU, as a local, I had been going to SLU games, you know, for a long time and really was a fan. But then everybody on the floor in my dorm, you know, my roommate was from Columbus, so he was a big Ohio State fan. Guy down the hall was a Duke fan for whatever reason. The guy from Green Bay was a Wisconsin fan. So like everybody no one was coming to SLU for SLU the way that they do at some of the other schools, especially the football schools, or your more established powerhouse schools. So SLU's always kind of been in that uncomfortable middle area there where it really is hard to build and sustain. I don't know how related that is to the bar culture anymore. I don't know. I don't pretend to know everything about the current generation of students because it's been 15 years now since I was on campus. And so I know things change, but I think it starts with just kind of building and maintaining that winning program, the program that's going to win at least 20 to 25 games every year is kind of what we want to be in the A10. And I think we're there right now. If, you know, hit on a couple more recruits, if this season happens on time and happens the way we think it will, we're in a good spot to build something, but man, it takes time.
I think that wraps it up for me and Zach's portion of the show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys were entertained. I hope you guys continue to enjoy the video format. Zach, do you have any final thoughts for the people listening at home?
Nope. I think we've got. Do you want to tell them what I've got coming out, or?
I'm going to hold off on that for a few
Okay.
more days. We have a lot of stuff loaded up. I apologize, everyone. I have not had time to get caught up on all of it yet. I have a lot of stuff to finish putting together. Zach's done some stuff that I will have out hopefully in the very, very near future. We have a new episode, a new interview.
Yeah.
It will be out hopefully in the very near future. I have some technical issues with that one.
We can announce that. We can announce it.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, you want to announce that one?
Yeah, we got former walk-on Brian Daly. He was awesome. I mean, funny, like as I've always said, funny, foul mouth, forthcoming. That's what I want for my guests every time. Foul mouth can take or leave, but funny and forthcoming. And Brian Daly was certainly that. He's got some great stories. I believe a good Christian Salisic story.
The story I'm going to tell you all right now. The story that is going to dominate this episode, and it's going to dominate because I just don't see how it doesn't. Is a story about Rick Majerus that tops every story of Rick Majerus you will ever hear anywhere ever. I could not emphasize that more.
Dude, I don't know. The Paul Eckerly story was pretty damn funny though. From
the trash can on the court in the middle of practice.
Oh no. Yeah, I'll hear that. Yeah, that one will be good.
Yeah, that's what I'll leave you with.
Yeah.
Trash can on a court in practice. You will not believe where that story goes from there. That's
nice
all we'll say.
Clickbait headline.
Hey, I thought it was actually pretty good off the top of my head, to be honest with you. I'm a little bit proud of myself. Maybe I shouldn't be, though. So that will be out hopefully very soon. There will be some changes aren't the right word, additions, some new stuff that we'll be doing. We say that all the time. I just keep reminding you. Yeah, it's work in progress. We're trying to obviously try things in the summer when it's dead and get ready for next year when things are obviously more hectic. So when updates and information are available on that, I will let you know as always. Thank you guys as usual for tuning in. We appreciate it. Again, any comments, anything you want to say, please just say it. I'm bored. Reach out. Thanks for listening, guys. Zach, you wanna hit the deuces again?
Oh yeah, I think I did. I think I did the that from Takers. You remember? It's a callback to the Stewart interview. The Taker that's how Matt Dillon finds him, because he does that.
I love you, baby, and if it's quite all right, I need you, baby, to on the lonely night. I love you, baby, trust in me.